Let's go look closer on the render quality options. And I will go work with the user settings, so it's give me access to all of these properties and we can look closer. The first property in the render quality options, it's called apply materials. And deselecting this will replace object material with a uniform color. So in this case, if we don't want to apply any color or any to our object, we can just remove apply materials. It also will apply if you have any alpha transparency. It will remove it. It will be just one solid object. So unchecking enable subrays. This will disable the tracing any secondary rays like reflection, cast shadows, or all of this one. So let's say we enable, and when you enable, you have a sub type of the rays. So we have a trace, cast shadows, which is necessary if you want to enable subrays, if you want to cast shadows in your pictures. Also trace reflections, if you want any reflection will appear, and the same for add transparency. You notice for the trace reflections and transparency we have additional edit options. For the trace shadow we do have additional option as well. You can modify it, but it's also based on a light source. So if you're going in a sunlight example properties, okay, you notice right here we have shadows where we can affect some of the shadows we wanted. We can enable soft shadows as well, increase softness, going with the ray trace, and modify sizes for the quality and different type of softness. Okay, but the reflections and transparency we can modify inside the render options. Just overall let you know that you can, in latest Vue applications was added, override some of these properties per object or material, which is make more flexible. So you don't necessarily need to use just global properties. You can also just fine tune on each individual options. So let's go look on edit for the trace reflection and transparency, and right here you can see max trace level. So in this case it's how many maximum and total internal reflections. Alright, it's how many recursions happen. So for example 5, it will be bounced 5 times, and it's easy. You can determine if you put it one mirror across other one, and you can see how many times the reflection happen. So let's go to set 3 as example. Okay, I'm going set OK, and let's go select some objects, so we don't need them right now, but I want to add one right here. Actually, you know what, let's create, and we'll go set this to the mirror. Okay, and we'll take this copy, okay, oops, alt control, so we'll move, and we'll just put it behind the camera. So in some case you can see it's almost like a mirror inside the mirror. Okay, next I'm going to render as user default. We'll be sure we have only 3 levels enabled. Okay, we'll render internal. Let's go to the screen. Okay, 800 as a test, and we'll go render this. So as a render complete, you can see right here we have it 1, 2, 3, and now it's a stop reflection. So let's close it. We edit. Let's pop up maybe to the 10, which is will be quite a bit more. We'll go OK, and let's render this time. And now as render, you can see we have now 10 reflections happen till it disappear. So depend on how accurate or you want it, you can modify it. In some cases, if you're using with a reflection or other ones, sometimes you can get away just only with 2. But again, the more you have it, the longer it will take to render. This is very simple ways, but again, remember, if you have it more complex, reflections, it will take all this rays to render, so it will take longer time. And in this case, you can modify it if you want more quality or you want faster render. Okay, then next we have it super sampling. By default, it's disabled for user, but we want enable if we want to use it soft shadows, blur reflections, blur transparency, depth of field. So for this case, we need it enabled to make them work. Again, you can enable if you want to use any specific or ignore it. So I'm just enable right now. And you notice right here, we have an additional option to add for the depth of field or motion blur. So, and if we enable, we have it options to select what do we want to use it from distributed ray tracing, hybrid, or fast hybrid. Distributed ray tracing, it's a faster one. Hybrid 2.5, it's good quality, and a newer ones is fast hybrid 2.5D, which is used new algorithm for the depth of field generations, and it does use image blur like in a previous hybrid 2.5D, but it's used a faster color separation algorithm, and it's also worked with conjunctions and distributed ray tracing. So usually it requires several passes to create properly ray tracing. So in many cases, if you're going for the quality, you can use it hybrid. And again, if you want it, you can increase how many passes you want it. The lower ones will give you this grainy effect, if you remember, on the motion blur, and the more passes, the smoother effect will be. Again, it's a blur render option, so it will be for the depth of field or enable motion. If you do like want create some motion, some depth of field kind of realistic look for macro type, you want to increase this, but remember this will increase quite a bit of the render time, but it's give you a very nice, very smooth and good effect on the blur. Okay, so next we have optimize volumetric lights, and when this option is selected, the volumetric lights render much faster render, and most time you want to leave this option on. And actually, from my experience, I never found when it's give me any effect when I disable. So it does have it a little bit slower, but by quality wise, it's work fine when you enable. So it's actually good options. Next, we have it optimize last render pass, and this is making render 3 times faster, but leaving some details out on occasion. So, but one thing you need to notice right here, when this is option of optimization is enabled, your G buffer multipass and relighting is disabled. So if you want to use it any of these options, you need optimize last render pass disable. Actually, you will notice what happened if you use it optimized and you take your lights and move it, some lighting won't be correct. So if you do animations on the lights, or you change position on a some like volumetric lights or some other point of light, you probably want disable optimize last render pass. It's only work if you don't change any lighting positions and just maybe slightly moving some objects or scales. So in this case, it will work. Otherwise, just leave it unchecked. Okay, next we have it apply motion blur to object deformations, and object deformations refer to the animations of the plants in a wind. Also maybe affect some motion on the object when you change deform them as well. Overall, this option will take quite a bit memory use when you enable. So if you don't need it for the still images, you probably want to disable this. And actually, I also going inside the wind and disable in atmosphere settings as well, so it does not affect it. Otherwise, we will utilize the option try calculating and take quite a bit memory to calculate the settings for the blur, for the deformations. And again, it's mostly will affect on your plants, maybe some terrains, but again, mostly just leave it unchecked if you don't need it. With animations, when you have plants going in a wind and you do animations over the forest, this apply motion blur to object will give it less flickering effect because it will kind of smooth between pixelization. So maybe in that case you do want to use it. Okay, then next we'll have it compute physical accurate Gaussian, and it does create very accurate calculations, but it will increase significantly render time. So if you think you can use it fake Gaussian or other ones, go ahead, use it if you can get away with this. If you need it very realistic live type, then you can enable, but again, expect that your render time will increase significantly. Force use of reflection maps. If no actual map selected in your object, then it's use a default. These options also won't modify any original material settings, other ones, but if you don't have it, it will force it to use your reflection map, whatever you assign in your atmosphere settings. So next, it is ignoring indirect lighting on a plant. The problem with a plant when you have all this position of the leaves and calculating indirecting lighting between each trees and position, it's take a huge amount of calculations. In many cases, you won't see any significant difference, except maybe if you have a very close-up plant and you want to see some shadows or lights indirecting going from each other. In most cases, you probably want to disable this. So we can go like enable, leave this on. So in this case, we'll just enable, and this will speed up quite a bit our render. So and next is tile render, and this will force it to use a tile render instead bucketing render. These options won't be enabled if you have an object anti-aliasing enabling, which is will utilize bucketing render. So in this case, that will disable. This is faster render, but you will have it more jagged edges compared to if you're using object anti-aliasing for that. Okay, the next you'll notice we have an advanced effect library, advanced effect quality, and this is only enabled when we have it in a user mode. If we're using any other presets, this is kind of already preset quality, and we can go inside, but we cannot edit. We can only preview. So let's go in the user settings, and we're going to open our preset. So right here, you'll notice we have a general tab and a photon map. The general tab take care of the general global illuminations settings and as well as render of volumetric effects. And a photon map right here is grant you in-depth control over way photons map are generating and using. Okay, so let's look in the next tutorial a little bit closer on these tabs.